Hello. My name is Kyle Rumps, and I am a current MBA candidate at the University of Denver. I'm here at South by Southwest reporting on some of the panels and sessions that I had the pleasure of attending. Today's session was The Future of Hollywood in an AI-Saturated World. This panel featured Duncan Crabtree Ireland, who is the National Executive Director for SAG-AFTRA, Vanessa Holtgrew, the International Vice President of IASTE, Rebecca Ryan, the National Executive Director of the Directors Guild, and Sam Wheeler, the Eastern Executive Director for the Writers Guild. In this panel, they discussed everything from their negotiations in 2023 for every single one of their respective guilds, as well as the two strikes that came out of that. They also speak to the fact of how they all closely work together because although they have different aims, there is quite a lot of overlap in their respective fields. They went on to discuss, what they're looking at in the world today of their industries, how they're seeing AI change, as well as the fact that, AI advancement does seem to have slowed quite a bit since everyone's perceptions in 2023. And finally, discussing the different initiatives and problems that they are facing going into 2026 negotiations. So, if you're unfamiliar, all of these unions do renegotiate their contracts every 3 years. So, we are just approaching their next set of negotiations. Obviously, because these are negotiations and very, information sensitive, there was limited detail that they were able to go into as far as further negotiations or numbers. But one of the things that really stuck out to me was the fact that although it is such a hot topic, especially with creatives and especially in the film industry, I was surprised to hear that a very small percentage of each of these unions actually support the outright ban of AI. From most of the panelists, they were saying, broad brushstrokes, probably around 10% or less of the people in their union actually want to ban it. And many of them do see a lot of different, creative applications for AI. Just like throughout the film industry, there has been new disruptive technologies that have come in, and although they have been disruptive, they have aided in creativity. So going through this, it was very interesting hearing the different opinions of everyone, particularly Sam Wheeler, who's the executive director for the Writers Guild of the East. And because he comes from a legal background, a very impressive one at that, it's interesting to hear him talking about just the fact that these negotiations, although hostile, are rooted in the fact that, the AI is theft. It was trained on models from screenplay written by union members throughout, dating back all the way to the 20s. And talking about that, even though while this is theft, the fact that the long-term implications actually hurts both the industry, the studios, and the end user. When using AI, you're typically, especially for a screenplay, you're typically going to be referencing, the major blockbusters. And whether people like it or not, most of these major blockbusters are aimed at upper to middle class white males. And that means that if AI are pumping out these screenplays, you get a very homogenous view of the world. I also spoke about the fact that, AI has never felt heartbreak. It's never been betrayed by a friend. And because it's never experienced these emotions, it makes it so it can't surprise us. It can craft a screenplay based off something that it's read, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be original or be drawing from the human experience, which truly is central to all storytelling in any medium, but particularly Hollywood. And I was fortunate enough to be able to ask a question on this panel. So I did just want to share that because I thought that the response I got from Sam was quite interesting. The question that I relayed to him was regarding his comments on the fact that scripts are stolen and then used to reproduce new art. Which reminded me of the Warhol Foundation versus Goldsmith case from 2016 of the Supreme Court. If you're unfamiliar, this case was about Andy Warhol using a photo taken by another photographer and then turning this into a screen print. And the Supreme Court actually said that this was, unsurprisingly to many, copyright infringement. So I asked him that if this overlap would possibly present a precedent that he could be using in negotiations, particularly for the screenwriters. I laughed a little bit because he said that, that was a great point, and it was not something that he had even considered, even though he was familiar with the case. He couldn't tell me too much more specifically, but said that it would be something that he'd take into account. And he also gave me some just great information on fellowships and other ins into the industry that might aid me post MBA. So a very interesting panel all in all. I would love to go more into the nitty gritty, but I am pressed for time. So I did just want to primarily focus on what Sam has said, although many of them echoed similar thoughts, as well as, Duncan talking about actors and likeness and how the contracts that they sign give studios, the rights to people essentially forever, and how the implications of this harm and scare many actors. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you learned a little bit about the future of Hollywood in an AI-saturated world. Thank you.